The views and opinions expressed in the following podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the producers, the affiliates, or digital platforms hosting this podcast. All content is for the purposes of education, conjecture, and at times entertainment. We promote inclusiveness and diversity. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Into the Deep with Jay Costa.
Welcome to Into the Deep. I'm Jay Costa. I am absolutely humbled and honored to host today's guests. That's right. It's episode 20, and it's our first episode with two guests, and they just happen to be a married couple. Today's guests are Jaclyn and David Lonebear Sanipass. Jaclyn is an author, jewelry designer, speaker, and happens to hold a BA in outdoor education and wilderness leadership. Her husband, David Lonebear Sanipass, is a Mi'kmaq elder and traditional storyteller, flute maker, speaker, basket maker, artist, and scientist, and has been traveling the world sharing freely the ancient teachings from his heritage called Star Teachings. Mi'kmaq are First Nations people of the northeastern woodlands, indigenous to the areas of Canada's Atlantic provinces and peninsulas, as well as the northeastern region of Maine in the United States. Jaclyn and David are two of the four captains that form Ancient Echoes. Ancient Echoes practice ancient sound and technology to bring resolute to spirit. Through information gathering and teaching, they help people understand spirit and the universe, and are here to bring change by helping the community of the world understand what spirit is. We talk about so much in this episode. We talk about how the teachings begin with kindness, the importance of community, how Jaclyn and David met, and their journey to help bring the teachings to the world. David was chosen and instructed by his elders and teachers to bring a message to the world, and is permitted to share only so much for certain durations of time. So at this time, I would like to extend a heartfelt and warm wilalin to the council for their permission and blessings for David and Jaclyn to join us here today. So, join me as we seek light and journey into the deep with Jaclyn and David Lonebear Sanipass. Enjoy. David, Jaclyn, thank you so much for doing this. And George wanted me to thank you as well, too. That from the bottom of our hearts, the two of us really thank you for taking the time and your energy today to talk about some really special things. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you could, for our listeners and our viewers, if you wouldn't mind, the two of you sharing who you are and what it is you do, please.
Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. Why do I have to go first?
Because you're the lady.
I love that.
And you know more of me than I do. So
I always go first. So yeah. I'm Jaclyn Sanipass and live in Maine. I'm born and raised in Maine. My family's from Maine. Sorry. My great grandparents are from Maine. So we have a long history in Maine, but we do a few different things. I like to make jewelry. I just recently published a book, and I work a lot with David and helping to share stories and technologies and teachings. So yeah, we do a lot of traveling and speaking to people and mostly trying to build community around the world.
I love that.
That's it?
That's it, yeah. In a nutshell.
My name is David Lonebear Sanipass. I've been in Maine forever, and Canada and parts of the world. And I come from Presque, Maine, suburbs of West Chapman, population 5. Been there most of my life. I am a Mi'kmaq native. Been living in the woods most of my life. Not used to the people a lot. I'm a basket maker, carver. I do 100 blacksmith. I'm doing 100 other different things. Recently, we moved to Norway, Maine, and that's where we have our shop, and we share the teachings and work a lot. And I've been doing that the last year now. After COVID, we had a lot of issues when COVID we had to move out of our house. We stayed about 9 months to 12 months on the road, living in our car and hotels and all the other stuff. And just getting back on our feet the last several months, just working again and sharing the teachings and going out. And I'm a scientist for the community. I don't know who I'm scientist for now, but I'm a scientist, jeweler, and flute maker. I do a lot of different things here. So that kind of narrows it down. There's a lot more, but there's a lot, that narrows it down.
Absolutely. just that. Wow. Well, you are both talented individuals with such skill sets and just such giant hearts and great energy. So I can't thank you enough for putting your energy into the world. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
So I'd love to have you talk to me and our viewers and our listeners about ancient echoes, and talk to us about, some of these star teachings that are, 20,000 years old, that the First Nations people were talking about in these northeastern woodlands that the Mi'kmaq were talking about and teaching and passing on. I'd love for you to share some of these.
Let you go first.
Okay, that's a very long story.
Yeah, I'm going to sit here and drink my tea and listen.
I guess I can start with when I first met David and my first introduction to the Star Teachings. And so it was back in 2012. That was 10 years ago.
Holy.
Okay, so 10 years ago in 2012, there's a lot kind of going on in the world, like there always is. But it seemed like, this big marker where there's a lot of fear in the world. People didn't know what was going to happen. There's, movies in Hollywood about the end of the world and, these predictions. And so I think at that time, there's a lot of people looking for kind of, spiritual answers. And of course, I was doing that too. I traveled to Peru and, trying to find these ancient teachings and what they said about this time. And some things sound similar and some things sounded like way different. So I was looking for the truth in that. And I happened to get an email invitation to come hear a storyteller speak in Falmouth, Maine. And I grew up in Yarmouth, Maine. So Falmouth is about 10 minutes, maybe, if I take the scenic route. And I happened to be in Utah at the time. And I saw that the storyteller was coming. There was 3 different dates. He was going to be, having tea with people and sharing some of these stories. It was a short email. It said that he was from the Mi'kmaq Nation and that he had been walking across the US and Canada sharing these stories. And I thought, how different is that? That's not a common thing. There's never, that I know of, anybody from the indigenous communities that came and shared these stories so freely. And so I definitely wanted to have a chance to listen. I think we had to pick one out of the 3 dates because they were only letting 8 people come because it was in a private home. And so I signed up for one of the dates when, as soon as I got back to Maine, I was like, I'm going to go listen to the storyteller. Apparently he was from Maine, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And so that was, I think, in July or August in 2012. And so I went to somebody's home. It was just an address in Falmouth. And I pulled up and I saw a few cars in the driveway, but I didn't know who I was going in to see. I didn't know whose house this was. I didn't know anybody else that was going. And so I'm, kind of more of like a shy, introverted person. And to be doing this was way out of my comfort zone. But I did go in and, I don't really know what I was expecting, but what I experienced was definitely not what I was expecting at all. But when I went in, there was, a group of people there. There's probably a few more than 8 because some people didn't pre-register. They just heard about it and showed up. And they had, tea, and everybody was asking, like, who are you? What's your name? Where'd you come from? Like, I'm so shy. I'm like sinking back in the corner, like, who are all these kind people? And, what are you doing? And they had been to the talk earlier, that there'd been some things earlier. And so, we waited a little bit and hung out, met each other. And then David came. And the woman who was hosting introduced David so that we would know who he was. And he sat down and, he's obviously had just come from work. He's all dusty and plastered. That just in itself surprised me, because here I thought, like, okay, there's a storyteller, like that must be what he does. But then he shows up and he's obviously been working all day, and is, plastered and kind of like brushed himself off and started the teachings. Or we weren't introduced to them as star teachings at the time. It was a time to sit together and have a cup of tea and listen. And what David shared was pretty extensive. I think probably the first one I went to I was there for about 4 hours, but then I had to leave. So I missed probably the next 2 hours. So these teas or tea time went quite long. And, it was David sharing where he was coming from and, sometimes what it took for him to get to where he was. He shared things kind of like all across the board, and it was probably based on, what the people there were asking. Like, I remember asking, what happens when you die, and then he was, talking about that, and he'd bring it back to kindness and making small suggestions, sharing some of his stories. And it was just, I don't know, like so incredible, because what I felt like he was saying felt like it made a lot of connections in my life. Like, I don't know, somehow things suddenly started making some sense. And when the tea was over, we left, and then everybody was curious to find out more. And because we just had like small introduction to a lot of different stories. And so the woman who was hosting, she tried to keep it small. She thought 8 people could fit in the living room. And there was 8 people that fit in the living room, but then there was a next talk. So there are people that had signed up for that. And I found out that some people signed up for all 3. And I thought, well, that's not really fair. So if they're going to go, I'm going to go too. And so the next one is probably 12 people, a few rule breakers. And we managed to fit in there with 12 people and listen some more. And, that kind of continued because there were people coming and listening. David was able to share more. And, we were just so unaware of the Mi'kmaq culture, or, where David was coming from. It was a lot of information and a lot of kind of eye-opening things. especially the way that it answered a lot of the questions were different than what we would expect. Like sometimes he'd suggest to just like go outside and stand in cold water up to your neck, like if you're so angry. And we're like, really? There's no like, simple ceremony for that. Like put it into the fire or something like that. But there were, suggestions, and people would try them and come back and kind of share their experience. And so over those smaller tea times, we learned that David was governed by a council. So what he was sharing had to kind of be approved by the council to be sharing with us. And he was only allowed to share, a certain amount for a certain amount of time. And because we had people coming and listening, he was allowed to share a little bit more. So going forward, they scheduled a few more teas, or tea times, I guess we called them then, and they tried to keep it really limited. And at one point, the host just said, "I can't limit this. Like, it's not even really part of the teachings to put a limit on anything. It's open to everybody, and all are welcome." So, the next thing, we had 60 people in the house, like where 8 could fit. There's now like, 60 by December. And like the living room would be full, and just people sitting so close together, just intrigued with what was being shared. Nothing that we heard was really like what he was sharing. Some, similarities, but a really different spin on a lot of things. And so yeah, 60 people. I came into one tea, and they're in the living room, and then there's another room. They pushed the table aside and tried to put like benches so people could see into the room, and David was kind of sitting in the door.
Wow.
So that we could all see him, but that was still like so crowded. So I'm like under a table, like, thinking, can I see through the wall? Just I could hear him. But and then there's people out in the kitchen, and people even sitting up on the stairway, and the house was just quiet and listening. And those people were taking what David was suggesting and going out and trying it, doing the different practices of kindness. And so because of that, he was allowed to continue sharing. He did 7 speaks in Southern Maine and Portland, Maine, from July to December 21st, 2012. And so all of those speaks were delivering all of the STAR teachings. We didn't know even like what they were really at the time. Like he kept talking about them, but we didn't know, like number 1 is this, number 2 is this, number 3 is this. It was just enough to like get to know each other, and to be excited to work together as community. And the most, I think, intriguing or drawing part for me was that I had been part of different spiritual communities, but they felt so separated. There was certain people with certain beliefs here, and they did different community building projects. And then there's another group that had a different focus. So I was in probably 3 or 4 different spiritual groups, all trying to build community, but they're all very separate. And when I came to the teas, it was like we had scientists and, people who are interested in physics and different religions, and just like a whole, just more diversity, I guess, and belief and understanding. But we could all just sit there and listen and get something out of what was being said. The STAR teachings were really based on science, and for me, I saw like a real practicality to it. We're gathering and being together, and then going out and sharing that light with the community in Portland or Falmouth or Bath, Maine, like wherever we were, we could immediately take something and then go out into the community with it. And and some of the other practices, it was like, oh, you have to study for years to learn how to do this certain ceremony. And, so with this, it was like anybody could show up, anybody could come, you could come to one, or you could come to a million and still get something out of it and be able to bring that out into the world immediately. So those first 7 speaks, I think, were really big in kind of this awakening in Southern Maine. Um, the 2012 December 21st, 2012 event, we scheduled a big event on that day, and David was saying we're celebrating the end of the earth or whatever. People were questioning, do we want to do that? Why don't we do it the day before, in case we're not here the next day? David was pretty adamant on, we'll do it on that day. We had a major storm on that day. It was the first time some of the elders also came down from Canada to speak alongside with David, which is probably the first time in history that that's ever happened. It was open and public, and it was a pretty big event. But the power went out. It was like windy and rainy. Like usually that's, it can be wintry at that time. But this was like a weird warm weather with torrential downpours and just wind, and it was just crazy. I think we might have had a generator or something that was running the event, because the power was out in Portland and the surrounding areas for that. So it was, pretty incredible way to end the world that night. And then, after that, following that, there's just such excitement and people wanting to get together and to make a difference together. And we continued doing teas and different, we didn't do we did. We continued doing the speak event. So the speaks were kind of more lecture style. David would get up, he'd do storytelling and weave in the teachings, and then we would have smaller teas. And that way we could take what we were learning and discuss it in the community groups and continue learning more. So that went all through that winter, and we ended up in Boston, North Carolina. The Star Teachings go where they're invited. So anywhere somebody invited us to go, as long as we could get there, we went. That brought us to, Vermont, and, over the years, it's kind of grown out. So we've gone to Arizona and California, and we've been in the UK, in London. And of course, we were invited back to Canada and had a lot of teas and tea community there. So over all of that, I tried to make a commitment to go to every single event that I could go to. I remember hearing, when they would schedule the teas, luckily I was self-employed, so I just clear my schedule and then I'd put in the teas or, the speaks first, and then I'd schedule around that. And then, I'd get a little like, oh man, because there's always like the impromptu, like, okay, there's a teaching tomorrow, and I'd have something planned and try to work around that. But the way that, David works is, there's specific times, and sometimes we don't know that there's going to be a teaching or event tomorrow. We just have to be prepared to do it. So that first year was really an introduction to David and the Star Teachings. I don't think he might have told us they were called Star Teachings early on, but it wasn't until probably March of 2013 where we actually publicly invited people to a Star Teachings event. And these Star Teachings, there's other Star Teachings out there. So these ones are pretty specific. And they're, revealed, I guess, as the communities are ready. So, after going to so many, like some things David said in 2012, I didn't understand. I still don't understand. But some of them, it's like 8 years later, I'm like, oh, okay, I think that's what he means. And then the next year, I'm like, oh, wait, no, there's another layer to what he's saying. But I guess, that's kind of the introduction that I've had to the Star teachings that might be helpful for people to hear.
Okay, the interview's over. That's it. Let's go home.
That's just the intro.
Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. And so, if you don't mind, have you noticed that since, a decade ago when first starting this, like you said, it's when people are ready to be open to the teachings, when they're ready to accept and understand these things, have you felt there's been a shift in the collective consciousness in individuals as a whole over the past 10 years?
That's for you.
That's for me. Okay. Well, I usually start by saying 2012 was like the end of the world, and people seemed a lot more open at that time because it was like the fear somehow, they were looking for something, community, something to hold on to, something to be a part of, some way to help. And then, we wake up on December 22nd, 2012, and it's like, we're still here. And so I think slowly it seemed like people kind of went back to sleep, like, okay, that's over. We survived that. Now we can go back to our daily grind. And it seems like waves sometimes. And we try to look where things are happening in the world. It seems like, little pockets will open up here and there, but there's only like a short time window to get to those places. So I think after, gosh, I don't know when it was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, David had said, we're looking at the UK right now because there's a, kind of just like an opening or awakening in the UK. So what we do is just, be aware of that and to see, we can't just go somewhere without an invitation. And like we can't just go to Hawaii and then just start teaching the Star teachings. It's not going to be accepted. That's not the way the teachings work. So, we're looking for the invitations. And after David said that, I have my ears and eyes open more specifically to see, if something's coming from there. And it was like 2 days later, somebody from London reached out and invited us to have tea in London. And I'm like, yay, we got the invitation. I see an invitation to London. And then the whole thing is like, okay, now how do we get there? We're in Maine. That's a pretty lengthy flight. And London costs a little bit more than it does here in Maine. So, we did manage to go, but we couldn't bring as many people as we wanted to. There's a lot that happened with that first trip, and actually David wasn't even able to go. That's a whole other story, but there's what Spirit is saying, and what we're trying to do, and then what we're actually able to do as humans. And it just seems like such a delicate window. So we were able to get over to London. We shared the Star teachings. We had 2 teachers from New Brunswick that came with us, 2 Mi'kmaq teachers, and those teachings hadn't been in London for 500 years. So it was bringing the teachings back. So it was really like hugely significant. We were able to go to London 3 times. So I went once with 2 of our teachers from Canada, and then the next time David was able to go, and we took some more teachers from Maine. And then we went one more time, and David said, we have to get back in 45 days or we're not going to be able to come back. and we tried to put another team together to get there, and that window closed, and then COVID hit and everything shut down. I'm like, oh, that's a serious window. So we still have connections over in England and Scotland, and some people that joined us there. And, the third time we went, there's people that came from South America that flew to London to come hear the teachings, and they came from Spain and all over. So we made a lot of connections there, but we weren't able to stay and continue. But each time we went there, it was like pretty amazing that there's so much hidden in plain sight. And even like we're aware of a lot of the star teachings, not all of them, but we're standing in a building and we're like, what is David doing? He's like talking to the clerks and stuff like that. And then we start looking around because there must be a reason why we're here. He wouldn't just like bring us into this building and ask about dogs or whatever he's doing. And look around and we start seeing different symbols that we recognize from the star teachings. And so this is just like it's used for regular kind of business for the town, and but it has a big history in the star teachings. The star teachings are some of them came from Knights Templar. So there's a lot that we saw in England when we were there. But it's like right there, and people are just walking over it and have no idea. So it was cool to be in that other place and to learn kind of another layer of that history. But I think there's just waves depending on what's happening in the world. And like a war breaks out and everybody, well, a lot of people don't want that happening, and so there's like this rise of what can we do. And then it feels like we get to a certain point, and then it kind of like, like we can't do anything, and, it kind of slows down. But we're trying to get people to gather before tragic events happen. I think that we have a lot more, I think we can have a lot more control than we know we do. But it just takes like so many people working together. So yeah, we just keep an eye on world events, and some of what David has for information, we use that, and just try to do the best we can to get to the places we need to go when we need to be there.
I can imagine that. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for just your consciousness and being observers and helpers and utilizing kindness and compassion to spread light into the world. I think it's something important each and every day. And I feel, in my opinion, that so many people have gotten away from kindness and compassion and gotten away from collaborative work or collaborative efforts together. And you bring up a great word in community, and how important community is, and what we can learn from one another, and how we can move in a positive, loving direction with community. So I appreciate the sense of community that you're bringing. And then on top of that, sharing these star teachings. So thank you for doing so much for our world. And I think more than many people even realize. So thank you. And I am grateful again to the council for even just the permission for this. So thank you to the elders and the council as well. So thank you.
I just want to thank you for having us on. And I want to apologize right up front.
No.
Some of the things I say is it bumps into traditional people, it bumps into religion, it bumps into all the other things out there. And people get mad me speaking about these things. But in our world right now, there's so much false information going on there, and everybody thinks they have the right information, including this person. And I I'm going to just apologize up front if I insult any of your community and think that I'm not a debunker. That's not what I'm here for. But to understand the truth, you have to know the direction where the truth is coming from. So, and to me, that is pretty well up, if we're on the earth, then truth is up there. So, yeah, I just want to say that I don't do podcasts frequently very much. I used to do a lot of them, but it got so crazy and nutsy and all that stuff. I just stopped doing it because you have to be able to ask the right question, and all the crazy things that you probably know all the crazy things that's going on there. And I was answering the same question all the time. Just nobody's not really thinking. And we talk about the higher conscious, all the different things, all those different things that we think that we know about, and we know absolutely nothing about or understand where it comes from. And part of my research and the reason why I'm here, I am just a basket maker. That's all I am. I don't claim anything else out there. In my tribe, I don't even hold the pipe or a drum. I'm not even allowed to dance. I am just a storyteller. So, and I try to still stay in that realm of storytelling. But there's so much else to these teachings that people don't really understand what they when they come in. So, oh, that's great, everything else, and they go and we never see them again. And it's like that always. We travel all around the world speaking and everything else, and people say, "Oh, I want to know the truth," and I tell them the truth. Goes, that's not the truth. So, and they expect I guess the little angels, the earth beings, the aliens, that's how true is that? I don't know. I'm not a debunker, but I know what I know and know what I understand. And like I said, with this machine, you can be just about anything you want to be, and people have. And you go online, you can see all the craziness. So, going back to the message, yeah, there's a message sent, but why was it sent? Why was it sent to us? It's because later on that summer that we had a ceremony in the north, and a big ceremony. It's called 1,000 Drums. And what there was just not only natives, it was French and English and Italy, Germany, all the ones that came to celebrate. And the world was in such debacle at the time, and everybody didn't really know what was going on. And of course, everybody has their belief of this God or creator or a program or what else. So we decided to pray in our own way, and it was a lot of people, and I was younger at the time, and they played the drum for 3 days straight. They didn't stop playing the drum, and they put prayers in that, and then they try to keep it as traditional as possible. You couldn't wear shoes, sneakers. You could wear moccasins or your whatever that you're traditionally dressed. And a lot of people had wooden shoes. That was from over the seas. And part of that ceremony that I participated. But like I said, I was a younger. I didn't know very much about the world, and what people said about me. It's like, oh, he's the chosen one, things like that. And being a younger, I thought it was all crap. I said, this is my tradition. And then my elder said, oh, you have to come to this 1,000 Drums, and people are expecting you to be there. And I really didn't want to be there myself. I had other things as a teenager to go out and do, and fishing and being in the mountain. But I went forcefully. And of course, there was 1,000 drums. There's probably about 20 drums playing all the time, but there were 1,000 drums there. And they had strict ceremonies, they sweat lodge, all the different things that you can possibly think of tradition. And I didn't participate in any of it. I was there to tell my stories, and I had a little area that they gave me. I had some logs, people come and sit on, and during the ceremony, some people come in and sit and listen to my stories. And I wasn't a very good storyteller at the time. I knew the stories, but I monologued them, but it was all right. And we had a couple of people come in and things like that. And they played the drums and did all the different things. And end up, I think it was Saturday No, it was Friday night. And I went and told my stories. A lot of people showed up. I don't know why they enjoyed the stories because I wasn't a good storyteller. And after the ceremony, they had you would call it, we call it a wiki up. You guys would call it a wigwam or a teepee. We call them wiki ups. They're fast lodge. And I got done, and the person that's taking care of me, you would call them bodyguard, I guess. This guy was like 6 something, and we went in, and I was hungry, and of course the traditional meal is moose and all the, and I like moose, and I said I didn't want that. I said I've been eating that for the last couple of days. I said, what do you want? I said I want a cheeseburger. So there was a store down the road. He went and got some fries, home cooked fries, cheeseburger, and a bottle of Coca-Cola, snuck it into the wiki up, so I was in there eating that. And he kept most of the people away because people wanted me to bless them or do something, or just crazy stuff. And I was in there eating, and I hear the people outside talking, but everybody's kind of excited. So I stuck my head out the window, and everybody's out there looking at the wiki up where I was. I had a cheeseburger and fries in my hand. And I asked my friend, I said, what happened? He said, lightning just struck your wiki up. Yeah. And that's because I did see some blue something, and it struck the tent where I was in. And to the elders, that's a sign. And to me, it was like being in the wrong place. So... So that went on, and I did get to sleep after a while. Next morning, I went out to the powwow ground, or the gathering ground, and met my elder out there. And my elder says, how come you're not carrying your smudge bow and your feather? I go, well, I don't need to carry. So, well, people expect you to do that, to smudge them and stuff like that. So I don't believe in that stuff. And but I ended up carrying it, and he said, well, you should go down to the river and make an offering to the water spirits or something. I said, I didn't. This was all rigmarole to me. It didn't mean anything to me. It's part of my tradition, but again, I was younger but I want to make sure I was respect my elders, so I went and did that. And the water was a quarter mile away, and I got down to the water, and I'm looking at my elder, and he goes, smudge, because everybody's pretty well looking at me from the grounds. So I did the smudge and stuff like that. Like, it didn't mean anything. Nothing meant anything. Then I noticed everybody looking up, and there's like, you can tell everybody's looking up at something. So I looked up, and there was, I thought it was crows at first. It was like 100, 150 birds, and they were making a big circle. They were going around. And come to find out, there were eagles, about 100 or 150 eagles, and they made almost a perfect circle. And I look up at the grounds, and everybody was taking their feathers and holding the feathers up, and say it's a sign from the Creator or something like that. And I just thought of it because I'm a hunter, so I know what they were doing. They were gathering for their hunt for the river, and that's usually they gather in big numbers and hunt the river. And I noticed almost in the center, I see a little dark spot, and that dark spot came down. And what it was is the eagle lost one of its feathers and dropped it right in front of me. And my elder said, pick it up, pick it up. So I picked it up, and I guess all those people were holding their feathers and hollering and beating drums and stuff like that. And I brought the feather up to the elder and said, what'd I do with it? He said, you hang on to that. And all the elders and everything else were giving me blessings, and everybody wanted me to bless them, things like that. And again, did not mean very much to me. It's like we're playing crazy here. This is not going to work. So I think I got breakfast and had like an egg sandwich or something, and went to my little place I was going to storytell. And at that time, they weren't called powwows. They were called gatherings. We didn't know the word powwow. And it was gatherings. And at the gatherings, people, just like the powwows now, they bring their things to sell, to trade. And some of the people brought preserve jars with moose meat and blueberries in them. And that was the trade. And they had those all together on one table. And they had trinkets and all the different things that you trade, and everybody just opening up. And before that, where I came up around the river, the community start doing something, moaning, and something was going on. And what happened is, I still can't describe it today. 1,000 blue lights came up out of the ground, and they were all over the ground. These lights were dancing. They're just like little blue orbs, but they were like sparkling. They're blue all over the place. And this must have took place about 15 minutes, and they kind of faded off and kind of turned to dust. And I didn't think it was weird still. But everybody else was scared. Some of the people, the elders, they brought prayer beads with them. They were saying their prayers. Some were Catholic, and they were scared. Everybody was scared. My elders said, "Everybody's scared. That shouldn't have happened." And I agreed. I don't know what happened, but something happened. And all of a sudden, those moose meat jars start rattling, and they're rattling. Bumping into each other, and after a while the ground started to shake, and there's like a thin dust that came off the mountain, and there's like this haze in the air, and it was an earthquake. I tell this story a lot, but I don't think people know the importance of timing. I guess the timing was. When the earthquake stopped, people were crying, people were scared, people were down on their knees praying. Some of the people wanted to go. They think that this was the end of the world. And to me, I wasn't afraid or nothing like that. And I asked my elder, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. And something about you. I go, I'm nothing. What about me? And everybody start raising their feathers. Says, raise your feather up. And I raised my feather up, not all the way up. And everybody around me raised their feather. And everybody, must have been about 6,000 people, maybe something like that there. And they start all bowing down. And of course, I was going to bow down. My elder says, no, you stay up. And I guess that felt weird at the time. And again, I didn't have nothing to understand or even understand what's going on. So that weekend, that Sunday night, all the elders were saying something happened this year. We don't know what happened this weekend, but they sent a message out into the universe in all different languages. If there is a God, if there's a creator, if there's somebody up there, something, please answer us. And they did this for 6 hours, sweat lodge. People were fasting, offering flesh offerings, all the different things. And they cried, and it was almost like a Pentecost revival. That's what it felt like. And everybody's making offerings, and you could see the campfires because everybody got spruce branches, and there was blue and green smoke going up that evening. And one of my things that my elders told me, I never could sweat. I never could go in the sweat lodge. I wasn't allowed to do that. I wasn't allowed to dance. I wasn't allowed to sing. I wasn't allowed to do anything. You're just a storyteller. So I just kind of took care of the fire for the sweat keepers. And this went on 6 hours, just drumming and crying, and the prayers were directed up to offer help. So the main, where the elders, the Turtle Lodge, where the elders were, Probably after about 5 hours, this guy come over and got me, says, the elders need to talk to you. So I'm not allowed to go into the sweat lodge. No, you stay outside the sweat lodge. So I went up there, probably about 20-minute walk. And it was 2:00 in the morning, I guess, something like that. No, it was like 1:00 in the morning. And went in there, and my elder's in there, and he says, we need to send a message to the Eastern spiritual leader. We need to send the response or something. And at that time, in our families, we held letters, different letters written by a lot of our teachers, and they were supposed to be held by families. But most of the museums got a hold of them, and they displayed them. And we didn't have all the letters. We didn't have the 7 letters there. We only had 4. And one of my assignments was to go get those letters and bring them to the Eastern spiritual leader. And I didn't know who the Eastern spiritual leader. I thought it was President Carter or somebody or something. And end up them singing and then talking a little bit more, and everybody kind of finally just settled in their beds. And Monday morning, when it rolled around, nothing. No, the world was the same. Nothing changed. And we all got packed up. And then after a couple of days, everybody cleared out of that ground, and we went home to our prospective places. And I was younger. I went home, talked to my sister and my dad about it. Nothing. Nothing happened. As we know, it was powerful ceremony, but what we asked for, I believe in spirits at the time a little bit, because I always heard something on my right side, and it was always muffled. I couldn't understand what that muffle was. And that's supposed to be spirit talking to me, but it was I didn't understand it. And after a while, that I went to my life, went to school, did all that stuff. Always heard that muffled voice. Never thought anything of it. But in the teachings, in different other methodologies, what I've been taught, that message has been sent to us. But how to receive it? In this day and age, people say, "Oh, light language. I speak light language or write like," and I'm not, like I said, excuse me, I'm not a debunker. But if a message was sent, if we are to receive a message is information. People say, "Oh, I talk to spirits all the time." That should be informational, no matter what that is. It shouldn't be go to the river and make an offering. Spirit doesn't talk that way. As much as I know, they've never talked to me that way. Is that they pretty, if you ask for something and you do it the right way, you get it immediately. There's no waiting and you deserve it, or the spirit doesn't work that way. The Creator does not punish. I tried to tell even clergy this. The Creator prepares. That's what he does. Or he does, or she does. I don't know if the Creator is a woman or a man, but I know spirit is not. We talk about feminine and masculine. There's no such a thing in spirit world. Because if spirit is spirit, it is all of everything, not just one thing. But that's the humanness that we want to put into spirit. So part of growing up and understanding what spirit is, and talking to elders, and you think I should be wise right now, but I am not. I feel like I'm more stupider than I was when I first started out. And but I tried to look for that message through radio signals, because we talk about, I'm coming down to something, and I won't keep you all day. So we talk about messages, receiving messages through spirit and everything else, and if that is so, and if that is so, we should be able to pick up the resonance of spirit, no problem. There's been work done on this for hundreds of years. So, we talk about mediums and all the different stuff. Are they picking up something? Remember, it has to be informational. My grandfather passed away many years ago, and people say, "Oh, I have a message from your grandfather." My grandfather already set a code with each other. So if I'm sending a message, I'm going to send you this code. Nobody's ever come in with that code. Even my father and my mother and my sister, we all have those codes. Nobody's ever came with those codes. So it has to be informational. That's what I said. So at the young age, I started trying to figure what that message is, where that message was sent. And there was such a message sent. I should be able to receive it, or somebody should be able to receive it. Right now that we have all this technology that we can receive radio signals and everything else, back in the 70s, I did not have a very good way of receiving radio signals. So I studied radio, how to receive those messages from radio. I set up antennas out in our field, traveled around Canada, different places looking for a radio signal. I didn't come up very much. Ended up using SD rockets to send small antennas up to receive in that frequency band, should be in the hydrogen band, and didn't receive very much. I started using rockets, gasoline rockets, and putting them up 16 miles up and having a way to receive partial of that message there. And guess what? I received a couple of little strips that convinced me that they're there. I spent most of my life doing that still. And I gathered that information 40 years or more, and still gathering information now. And just the last, several years, I've been finished translating the messages I got back in the 70s, because it's all in binary. You know anything about computers?
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what binary is?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
off and on. So that's most of the way I can receive my messages. So I made a program so that it takes a binary and turns it into some recognition of what the radio message is. We have a, can I talk about the scrolls? Yeah. We have scrolls that has been passed down to me, and I was taught some of that translation through the scrolls, and take that radio message and put them through the way that I translate code in the scrolls. Code, and not until probably about 2 years ago, that just started making sense, because the code is what they call a reference code. We have to be in a certain part of space to be able to see most of it. So a lot of it's blocked out, and we just been getting the blocks through now. So I have more sophisticated ways of receiving messages. I use high altitude balloons, and they have a system on it that I can receive that message, and they stay up 1 to 3 months receiving that message. So I can do the blocks now and making sense of that code. When I first started doing this, the code made sense to the copper scrolls, but I couldn't understand it because I didn't have all the blocks. Because we weren't going through that part of space. Now I'm getting the blocks. They're starting to make sense. They're not like English. English is an alphabet. This is not an alphabet. And anybody that reads light language after that, they would have no clue what this was, because it is an actual decipher. And I had people come up and say, "Oh, let me put my hands on the copper scrolls." They don't work that way. And, it's hard to say that, because we're brought into what we think spirit is, and that's what we practice and do. So yes, I sent, I translated 2 messages, sent them out to community, and we have to. If you look on our website, is there I think there's on our website that you can actually listen to that code. That took a little bit more than 46 years to decode. And that ceremony that we did, and they sent the message out to the universe, they responded within 30 seconds of that message. If you look at the code and what's out there, that message was responded in 30 seconds. when they sent that out, that we just had no way to receive it. So it took me 46 years or 40 some odd years just to be able to translate it. So our world is not what we think it is. We keep on thinking, let's hold hands for peace. You guys would be the only ones doing that. The world wouldn't be doing that. We don't know about peace. We don't know about kindness. We don't know about compassion. We don't know about happiness. We think we do. But in the Copper Scrolls, it tells us how to start. Everybody says, I want to learn the Copper Scrolls. And they come into the teaching and say, well, you got to be in part of the community to understand that. Because in order for me to understand that message, I had to be in community. I couldn't be a single person translating that message. There's no one person out there that's that important. We talk about Billy Graham and Dalai Lama, but again, they can't translate peace. They don't know how to do peace. And people say, oh, what about the gurus? No, they stay in the mountains. Why do they stay in the mountains? They should be here. They should be here. And in that message, if you read that message, that they said they will send, they already walk among us. What does that mean? It's like, who walks among us? What walks among us? Would we recognize it? Would it be like a Native American? Would it be a guru? Would it be what? But they don't explain what that is. But in the Copper Scrolls, it describes the description of the emissary, whatever that is. But in the teaching, do you think this would be thousands of people be flocking to this? No. We are too stuck on ourselves. Our ego rules our eyes. And when your eyes are ruled by your mouth. And nobody listens after that. It's like, and I find that when I go somewhere, went to Arizona. Somebody came up to say, I'm chosen. And the guy, I said, you're chosen? Yeah, I'm chosen to lead the people. I said, well, what are you talking to me for? And people don't realize that if you're going to do something, you have to be able to do it. You just don't talk about it. And I think that with all the other spiritual leaders around, you think that we would unite as a community, but we don't. We want to be individual. Like I said, I claim to be nothing. I'm nothing here. I tell people, I say, I want to see David Sanipass. Well, you're seeing the wrong person then, because if you want to see me, that you heard one of my things, that you should be in community here, not talk to me. Because only thing I can tell you to do is work. If you're going to do something, you in community, chop wood, do something. And don't sit around and listen to me. And that's why I don't do the podcast anymore, because everybody wants to see the Indian, the messenger, or whatever that is. And I'm neither of those. I am a toll booth keeper. I'm the mechanic that breaks down on when we drive somewhere. I'm the mechanic that fixes the car. I'm not the one that calls God in to part the waters. I don't think he listens to me very much.
Thank you so much for sharing. But I think that in everything you said is that's truth, right? That's, you say, this is who we are and what we do in our experiences. And then, that I think each of us taking that time to have those conversations and to just talk and just keeping community alive. And I think that, again, I can't stress enough how much I'm grateful for anyone who will take their time to even just have a conversation, and hope that maybe someone listening can take some things away from that and bring that into the world with them, to, in hopes, create better worlds and better lives for everyone around them. Because that's all we really can do and try to do. No one has all of the answers, but we can try our best to try and help those around us. And in turn, without selfishness, it's helping us, because we're helping each other. We're helping the world become a better place just by having good conversations and learning. And in my opinion, anyway, and I don't claim to know anything. I'm just a guy with glasses, a bushy beard, long hair, who likes to have people share their stories, and maybe someone can learn from them and take something with it, take something from it and share it with them and their loved ones. So I love this.
You know, we have the answer to homelessness. We have the answer to hunger. We have all these answers, but we don't communicate. When I come to town, I invite all the other elders, all the other spiritual leaders to come and listen. Not one has ever came to listen to these words, and I claim nothing. Our world of understanding, we don't understand it. Our world of love, we don't love. The first teachings in the Copper Scrolls, from the ancient elders, is kindness. That is the first lesson. People say, "I want to learn all this kindness," and part of that kindness is being kind to yourself first. Take care of that temple that's inside you. To make sure that you're happy. To make sure that you're not blaming yourself. When you get up in the mirror, the part of the quality of the world is that you got to look in that mirror and like that person in the mirror first before you like anybody else. And, some of the things that we've done in the world, there's people hold this forever. And part of that is understanding what community is inside. We're not alone in here. We have all the other critters that keep us alive, and we have our ancestors in our brain and all the different things. And as much as people tell me, your elders will never come to visit you unless you understand this. And no matter if it's spirit or is in understanding what human is. I think this is the hard part of the teachings, is because everybody wants to be the fuzziness. They want to feel something. You do feel something, it's not about that, And if it was about that, we would go to Russia right now and put our feelings out to them. If we went over right now, we'd be shot for what we believe, no matter if it's church or not church. The real thing is like, all right, all you people that claim to do something, and I said, go on the front lines and do something. Show me what you can do. Show me what your truth is, and to see. And again, I don't see anybody over there. I don't see anybody feeding the homeless in the poor countries, or even in the United States, or even the reservations. I don't see them people there. They claim all these things, but and again, I'm not a debunker. When somebody says, "Oh, this crystal has power," we should be able to measure that, no matter what that is. Not using the human feeling to measure it. Our world, we measure a cell phone is run by a crystal. Without that crystal, the cell phone would never work. But it needs electricity to do that, though. And the same with all the other things that we do. And people get so mad at me, say, "Oh, no, you don't know." I do know. I do know. You bring any of those objects to me, I have enough equipment in my lab to figure out that thing does anything. We had several years ago, some friends come up from, I'm not going to tell you what country because we would name who they are. Some people that came from out of state and claiming this crystal can purify water. And it's a beautiful crystal. It was made by individuals. They paid $1,000 for this.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. It was a lot. They had a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Each individual one was pretty costly.
Yeah. So, and he asked me to test them. I said, "Well, are you going to believe the test results?" Because no, I feel it here. I can take a regular stone and feel it here, It has to be able to, I can measure the magnetic field around you, electrical field, and that goes out about 16 feet we can measure. So I can measure that. So anything that interacts with that, that's part of you and interact. And guess what? I can measure the Earth's magnetic field. You react to that. I can measure a magnetic field around an apple, all the different things that live. I can measure electrical field minutely, but I can measure it. And they brought these crystals to me. They did nothing. I looked on the advertisement. They're very good advertisement and all these words, this and that, and this and that, does this, purifies water. And they're trying to purify water with it. They had a bunch in a fish tank, and they said, "Oh, it's purifying water. It's changing the structure." Maybe so, but it didn't take out the sediments out of the thing. You can change structure by water just by putting your hand and throwing it up in the air, and the structure's changed. So, and to take this to a country that has bad water, they die because the crystal didn't do anything. And but after that, I said, I will make you a machine that actually purifies water and it wouldn't have crystals in it. And I'm still working on that. And out of the machine I made, the most dirtiest water, the thing will bring the water up to 99% pure, because it works with water with atomic weight. It takes all the stuff that's heavy out of it, and it works. But again, is that with that $1,000 little crystal, and they bought 62 of these things. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a debunker, but is that we're into all these different things, and we want peace in the world. I don't know. There's people living off our peace and financial means. And I find that a lot. And that's why I had Jaclyn go on first to see who you are and what questions you ask. And that's why I'm on here. It's like, I feel like you are a true person, true spirit. So that's why I'm here. So, yeah. And I did check all the other videos that you had and things like that, because I'm not here to play games. My elders sent me to help, not to say that I'm going to part water, do all that different things. I'm here with a solution. That's it. That's it. If you do the solution, that's fine. If you don't do it, that's fine too. But it has to work in community. The Copper Scrolls describes how to do that. And we've been doing that for the last 10 years. And it has made difference in people and change. Some of the people that made change in this, I don't want to change your belief. That's not what it is. I just want to change, maybe look in another direction, but keep your belief. That's it. And see what works. That's all. And we have no qualms or quirks if you do it or not. It depends on community and yourself. That's it. It's hard to talk because, oh my goodness, I teach almost every week or every other week, but people don't know what to have a hold of here. It's not a circle like Native American talking circle. People say, "Oh, it's a Native American." That's not what it is. This is older than that. It's governed in a different way. We do different things. There's different things that we do in community. It's nothing you've ever seen before, but it's the most simplest thing that you can possibly do in community. And part of community, we welcome everybody into the circle. There's just a couple of rules you got to follow when you come in, but that's it. They're not even rules; they're just directions. And if that direction is met, the circle will go fine. You are invited to the circle. So.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm honored. I would take you up on the invitation. Thank you.
We'll see you there.
Okay. I will see you there. I will make sure of that. You have my word. I love that. I know we're running short on time here. So if you wouldn't mind, where can folks find some more information? Is there information on the internet and then also on the website? Any of the websites that you want to list now where folks can find more information?
Yes. ancientechoes.org is our main hub. So we try to put as much information on that as possible. We have lists of projects, Ancient Echoes projects. We have some of the teachings on there. We have the teaching kind of platform with past recordings. And then
recording them?
Yeah, there's some recordings. Some of them go back to 2016.
Wow.
And yeah, we've been trying to pull up more archives that we have to put on the website to make it available. And past recordings of events on our Crowdcast channel, crowdcast.io/HNECOs, I think. Yeah, and then we took a break from Facebook for a year. we were finding, we put things on there. It just doesn't really get understood in the way that we want to share. And there's just a lot of like, I like that, but not a lot of like doing. So we took a break. We are still on Facebook. So we've started to activate some of the quotes and, different kind of introductory pieces to the Star Teachings on there. The community likes that. So we have that, and we're also on Instagram. And we share some of the, behind the scenes, what David's working on. David in action. Yeah, he has no idea about any of this. So.
Didn't know.
Surprise. Yeah, and he's got a lot of different projects that we're working on. So yeah, that's all on the website.
That's awesome. So I'll make sure we're going to have all the links in the descriptions as well. So it makes it easier for folks to find everything and be able to reach out and follow along. Do you have any upcoming events, any teas that are coming up?
Yes, we have. We have Ancient Echoes is, we have 4 captains that kind of guide the direction of that. And the teas are kind of a subcategory of Ancient Echoes, and we have about 10 active tea lights or tea conductors. So it's a community thing, and when they're active, they're volunteers. So they put those groups together, and we've been having teas every Wednesday and Saturday in Southern Maine. And of course, we're open to invitations to other locations. So I'll put that in there. And we have 2 more storytelling events that David's going to be doing. We have a white bear project. We've been introducing the story of the white bear. And this is the beginning story of how the Star Teachings came here. So we're doing some fundraising so that we can actually record David telling that story and painting it. And that way,
Okay. Doing somersaults.
While he's making flutes and doing jewelry and all that stuff. But we just want to carve out some time so we can capture that story and document it. But he's got May 5th, which is coming right up in Portland at Mayo Street Arts, Hearing the Light, and then May 18th, St. Lawrence Arts.
How do you hear the light?
I don't know. That's why I'm going to the event to find out. Celebrating Light and Sound will be on May 18th, and that's going to be a pretty fun one. They're all really good. So that's all I have in my memory for the upcoming events.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that this episode will actually come out. I'll make sure that it comes out probably one of the next few, just so that we can make sure that we can plug the event before at least May 18th. I know next week's might already be up, but or in the line. So, but I'll make sure this one's up before the May 18th event, just so that folks can find out about it.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share with folks? Maybe some encouraging words.
I think the teachings, this all surrounds the teachings. The teachings is not following a elder or guru or something like that. The teachings is understanding what this world is about. We all think we know what the world is about, but if you just ask the right question, you would be answered. And everybody thinks they have the right question, but if you really think about that, now what if you could ask the question to the creator or the programmer or God, what question would that really be? Or would you sit there and say, "Oh, I don't know really what that question is"? And some people think they do, and they come around the world to talk to me, and they realize that they have no question. They just have a curiosity. So a question is that these teas that they're doing, if you want to know what it is, you have to come. You can't ask. And in the teachings, that my instruction from my elders, it said, you go where you're invited. And that was my instruction. So if you invite me to come and teach in your town, I have no choice, because Spirit's already said that. So, and that's how we work. It's like, if you ask, we'll come, without a doubt.
And there you have it. I cannot thank Jaclyn and David Lonebear enough for just sharing their time, their space, their energy, and for everything that they do for the world around us. I'd like to give a sincere, heartfelt wilalin to the council, the elders, and the teachers that permitted Jaclyn and David Lonebear to share some time with us today. We talked about so many wonderful things. I'm so grateful for all the stories they shared. We also learned about some really great upcoming events in Portland, Maine. I'd really like to implore those who might happen to be in the area to go check that out in person. So we've got this coming Thursday, May 5th at Mayo Street Art in Portland, Maine. It's going to be Hearing the Light. It's Mi'kmaq storytelling and flute playing by David Lonebear himself. And that's going to be from 7:30 to 9:30. And that's this Thursday, May 5th. And the upcoming Celebrating Light and Sound, Mi'kmaq storytelling and flute with David Lonebear Sanipass on May 18th. That's going to be at St. Lawrence Arts in Portland, Maine. We talked about some of the great places that you can find Jaclyn and David Lonebear's work. You can go to ancientechoes.org. There you'll find a series of events, teachings, and information around Ancient Echoes and the Star Teachings. You can also find more information around what David Lonebear is doing at lonebearsarts.com. And you can find out more information about what Jaclyn is up to and her jewelry making and her book by going to jaclynsanipass.com. And you can be sure to find them on Instagram as well as on Facebook. If you like the podcast, be sure to share it with anyone that you think would enjoy this kind of content, and take a moment and rate it. If you're watching, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can find out about the newest episodes coming out. You can find us on Instagram at itd.jcosta, as well as on Twitter at itd_jcosta. We can't thank you all enough for joining us. Until next time, Anquewado. Take care of one another and keep thinking for yourself.